Very good afternoon to all of you. We welcome you to Crescent Sri Lanka Budget Seminar. National budget presented by the government is a highly expected event and a very important event for the country. This year, we decided to have an online session to educate our clients due to the current pandemic situation in the country. This year's budget is an investment and growth-oriented budget. Many people expected the government to increase the tax rates due to the current economic situation. But the government decided not to increase rates and give that benefit to the people to invest for the economic growth. And this is not a short-term budget, it's a medium and long-term budget. The government's macro level plans behind the current year budgets are: the government expects 5.5% to 6% growth for 2021. The expected growth for 2020 is around 1.7%. Plans to maintain the budget gap at 9% of GDP and targets 4% of GDP budget deficit by 2025. And the government is planning to maintain the inflation around 5% and to ensure a single-digit rate of interest. Most importantly, the government wants to maintain the exchange rate around 180 rupees per dollar, planning to reduce the government rate from 90% of GDP to 70% of GDP by 2025. The government wants to simplify the tax structure further and create an opportunity for investment. The tax proposal in the budget focuses mainly on 4 areas: incentives for export and priority sectors. Number 2 is discounting imports or discouraging imports, simplification of the tax system, and continue the tax policy introduced in January 2020. In this background, to present the budget highlights today, we have our partner, Head of Tax, Mr. Kapila Korala. He will present the budget highlights. After the presentation, Mr. Kapila and our tax manager, Ms. Tarasi, will answer your questions. We have already received few questions from our clients, and you can send your questions using the chat box during the presentation, or you can unmute your mic and ask your questions directly after the presentation. Please ensure your mic is muted to ensure we will not have any connectivity problems.
Budget. The budget has got so many other proposals. My concentration will be basically on the tax-related proposals. I'll go to my discussion under 5 broad headings. The first one is the tax policy and administration. Then the tax concessions proposed in the budget. Then the tax exemptions proposed in the budget. Then there are certain other miscellaneous tax-related proposals. And finally, the tax relief measures to facilitate the recovery of post-COVID-19 recovery. These are the 5 broad headings under which we're going to have the presentation today. Under the first one, the tax policy and administration, we'll go through the key proposals under tax policy and administration. The very important first item is the consistent tax policy will be maintained for next 5 years. There is a very firm undertaking given by the government that the present tax policies will be maintained for at least another 5 years. If I little refresh your mind about the present tax policies, basically the tax changes recently announced by the budget, especially effective from January 2020. If I go through few details, what are those specific items? First one, if you look at the withholding taxes, there were a whole lot of withholding taxes on payments made to resident persons. Now, most of these withholding taxes were removed effective from 1st January 2020. Right now, there are only 2 withholding taxes remaining for if there are any payments made to the resident individuals. Namely, one is 2.5% withholding tax on gems sold through the National Gem and Jewellery Authority, any auction conducted through the National Gem and Jewellery Authority. That is 2.5% withholding tax remains. Once that tax is paid, after that, the remainder part of the sales proceeds will be exempt from income tax. The second item is the 14% withholding tax on winnings from betting, gaming, and lottery winnings will continue. Apart from those 2 withholding taxes, all other withholding taxes related to the resident payments made to residents were removed. But however, it's very important to remember all other withholding taxes on payments made to non-residents will continue. For example, if rent is paid to a foreign party, non-resident, then 14% withholding tax will continue. Then once it comes to the individual taxation, very, very important changes have been made. So one such change is the personal relief, which was earlier 700,000, was increased up to 3 million. So basically, if an individual has income which is less than 3 million, there is no income tax liability. Then the tax slabs are expanded. So with the 3 million personal relief, then the next 3 million will be liable at the rate of 6%, and the next 3 million at the rate of 12%, and the balance will be taxed at the rate of 18%. So now government has given an undertaking, these policies will continue at least for another 5 years. Then once it comes to the payee taxes, all of you are aware, from effective from last January, payee taxes have been abolished. And in place of payee tax, APIT, or Advanced Personal Income Tax scheme, was introduced with the threshold of 250,000 rupees per month. So basically, if an employee is receiving his salary less than 250,000, he need not to pay any taxes under the APIT scheme even. And further, the APIT scheme is not mandatory for resident employees. So if they want, they can ask their employer to deduct the APIT and send it to the department, or else they can pay taxes under self-assessment scheme. Then the retirement benefit, once it comes to retirement benefit under the employment income, again, a lot of concessions were given. Now according to the last January announcements, first 10 million of retirement benefits are exempt. Then the next 10 million is taxed at the rate of 6%, and the balance will be taxed at the rate of 12%. Then another change made to the individual income taxation is the introduction of advanced income tax. You call it AIT scheme, which is again not mandatory. It is on the, if the consent is given, AIT can be deducted. Now those are the personal income tax changes effective from January 2020. If you look at the companies, what are the main changes effective from January 2020? One main change was the standard rate of tax applicable to companies was reduced from 28% to 24% effective from January 2020. Then the manufacturing companies are liable at a special tax rate of 18% effective from January. Then a lot of concessions, the concessionary tax rate of 14% were given to the construction services, healthcare services, then agro-processing, etc., expanding the 14% badge further. Already the hotels And the educational institutions, they were liable at the rate of 14%, but additional categories included under the 14% category effective from January, as I mentioned, construction services, healthcare services, agro-processing, etc. Then the betting and gaming were liable anyway at the higher rate of 40%. Before that also, after January also, it will continue at the same rate. Further, manufacture and sale law, import and sale of liquor or tobacco products also liable at a higher rate of 40% before January as well as before December as well as after December. Then another important change made in January, earlier to be eligible for a lower tax rate of 14%, always you have to have 80% turnover from that particular activity. For example, if you are an exporter, if you want to enjoy the lower tax rate of 40%, at least 80% of your turnover should be from exports. If your turnover is 75%, entire thing will be liable at the normal tax rate of 28% before that. Now, after January, even though your exports are less than 80%, the proportionate amount will become liable to tax at the respective rates. For example, if you have 70% exports, the profit attributable to that 70% exports will be liable at the rate of 14%, and the remainder 30% will be liable at the rate of 24%, which is the normal rate. So therefore, this is also a big relief to the companies which are in these specified sectors, where lower tax rates are available. Then if you look, basically from January onwards, the predominancy rule, that is to be eligible to have the lower tax rate, to have 80% of the turnover, is removed. Then if you look at the partnerships were liable to tax, withholding tax at 8% previously, but that was abolished, and now partnerships are liable to tax at the rate of 6% on the partnership profit in excess of rupees 1 million. Then another important change that was effected in January was the NBT and ESC was removed. Further, debt repayment levy was removed. Then the VAT threshold was increased up to 75 million. I think all of these things are, most of you are familiar with. So we hope these policies will be consistently applied for at least for the next 3 years, according to the commitment given by the government. Then government is proposing through this budget a new consolidated special goods and service tax on 5 items. The 5 items are alcohol, cigarettes, then telecommunication, betting and gaming, and vehicles. Now government has identified the 50% of the government tax revenue comes from these 5 areas: alcohol, cigarettes, telecommunication, betting and gaming. So therefore, they are going to concentrate on this particular area. And another thing is, here these 5 sectors are liable to numerous taxes and levies. Once it comes to alcohol and cigarettes, they are liable to numerous other taxes. So therefore, in lieu of all these taxes, I think they are going to consolidate all these taxes and introduce one particular item called special goods and service tax. But so far, what is the rate and all these details are not given. So we have to await for further instructions on this matter. Then from next year onwards, that is 2021 onwards, e-filing for companies will be mandatory. So every company will have to file their returns on e-filing method, not the manual method of filing is not allowed. Now here it is important to mention the companies mean not only the companies that are formed under the Companies Act. Apart from individuals and partnerships, all other rest of the organizations are considered as companies as per the Inland Revenue Law. So therefore, all these institutions will have to file their returns on e-filing method effective from 2021-22. And another important thing there, the tax identification number will have to be mentioned in all tax-related transactions of these companies. Then another area, now all of you are aware, once it comes to the banks and financial institutions, the bad debt provisions made as per the IFRSs are not allowed. Instead, what is allowed is the bad debt provision made in compliance with the central bank guidelines. But as per the recent changes that were effected to the accounting standards, now most of the banks and financial institutions will have to make their provisions based on the anticipated or expected loss model. Now the department is going to issue further instructions how these anticipated or expected loss model provisions will be allowed for taxation. So we have to await for the department further instructions on this matter, how these bad debt provisions of banks and financial institutions are going to be allowed in future. They have taken a policy decision to allow some part of these provisions made as per the accounting standard, it seems, according to the pronouncement made. Then right now, another big issue in our tax system is the time taken for litigation, especially for the appeals and the rulings. When you request a ruling from the department and when you are making an appeal, as per the present act, there is no time limitation within which the appeal should be concluded at the department level. Now the government is going to get to introduce legal provisions limiting the time frame, which is very important as far as the taxpayers are concerned. Then there's another special proposal, that is to establish a special tax appeal court to resolve all tax appeals. Now you may have heard, once it comes to the doing business index, the foreigners, when they look at a country, they look at this very important doing business index. So now our doing business index is very adversely affected because of the delays in tax settlements. So therefore, this setting up of a special tax appeal court will definitely help improve tax administration as well as improving our doing business index. Then again, I think this government, they are going to apply this 80-20 principle in management to the taxation as well. So what they are going to do is, they are going to, the next proposal is the large taxpayer unit. Basically, it consists of large scale businesses, banks and financial institutions. Now this large taxpayer unit will be under direct supervision of the Commissioner General of Inland Revenue. So to have a tighter control, they are putting LTU under the Commissioner General of Inland Revenue direct supervision. Then the next provision is little a debatable one, which says that the government will for against the auditors and private tax consultants who prepare fraudulent tax reports. Right now, this is a debatable area, but I think most probably the Institute of Chartered Accountants, they will take up this position with the government authorities and clearly come out with the method how this proposal is going to be implemented. So basically, anyway, this has been there for some time, the punitive provisions for the errant tax report preparers. So that will be implemented in times to come. Next one is capital gains tax. Now I think a lot of people, there was a bit of a reluctance for the capital gains tax, and some people thought it might be removed, but however, it has not been removed. And further, right now, the capital gain is computed considering as the difference between the sales price of a transaction and the cost of the asset disposed. Now, sometimes some people, they deliberately undervalue the sales value and pay a lesser capital gain tax. So sometimes this seems to be beneficial to the both buyer and seller. From the buyer side, if you disclose a higher value, you will have to pay a higher amount of stamp duty. So the both parties get together and artificially reduce the price disclosed in the deed. Now what it says in this proposal says is, so once it comes to the computation of capital gains tax, the sales price of a property or the assessed value of a property, whichever is higher, will be computed, considered for capital gains. So which means whenever you file a capital gains tax return, if assessor has any doubt about the values given for the sales value, he can refer it to the, most probably they will refer to the government valuer and ask for a valuation. And accordingly, correct amount of tax will be levied. Then we'll move on to the next area after the tax administration and policy, the tax concessions. There are two items under this. One is, now all of you are aware, as I explained earlier, the NBT and ESC is not there anymore. But however, there are some outstanding payments due from the certain taxpayers. So it is proposed here to give a concessionary payment plan to settle the outstanding amounts of NBT and ESC. Then the next concession is, now if any company expects to hold their shares in the Colombo Stock Exchange, and if you do it before 31st December 2021, their applicable tax rate for the first year will be 50% of the applicable tax rate, and thereafter at the rate of 14%, it will be taxed for another 3 years. For example, if any company is listed in CSC before 31st December 2021, for the year of assessment 2021-22, their tax rate will be 50% of the applicable rate. For example, if the applicable tax rate is 24%, for first year 21-22, it will be only 12%. Thereafter, another 3 years, it will be only 14%. So there's a tax advantage if you are listing your company in the Colombo Stock Exchange. This is an incentive given to bring more and more companies into Colombo Stock Exchange. However, I think if any company who is in the 40% tax bracket, for example, a liquor manufacturing company or a betting and gaming company, if you list your shares in the CSC, according to this proposal, their tax rate for the first year would be 20%. And thereafter, it will be 14% for another 3 years. But I have my doubt whether this will be allowed for this 40% rate category. Most probably, it will not be allowed for 40% rate category. This will be allowed basically for 24% category. Then we look at the tax exemptions. There's quite a large number of tax exemptions granted, something around 20 tax exemptions are granted. We'll go through one by one. First one, this is reiterated in the earlier stance from the January itself. It was announced agro-farming profits will be exempted. Now it says agro-farming, farming including agriculture, livestock and fisheries, profits and income are exempt for 5 years effective from 1st April 2019. Which means 1920 also exemption is available. Thereafter another 4 years the exemption is available for agriculture sector, agriculture, livestock and fisheries sector. Then IT, information technology and enabling services. Again, the profits and income from information technology and enabling services, whether it is conducted by a resident or non-resident, both are covered, are exempted effective from 1st January 2020. Here the time period is not mentioned, therefore it is a continuous exemption. Here the enabling services are to be defined, prescribed by regulation. Right. The next exemption for the Samurdhi life-saving accounts. Now, here the Samurdhi, on behalf of each Samurdhi beneficiary, a Samurdhi bank will open the Samurdhi life savings account, and part of their Samurdhi savings will be invested in government securities. So that interest income is exempt from the taxes. Then next one, the interest income is exempt in income tax on interest income and welfare societies and institution will be removed. So basically, welfare societies is clear, and it says further says institutions. Now there's a bit of an ambiguity. What are these other institutions? So we will have to wait for further clarification about the other institutions, what is referred to here. Basically, the interest income is going to be exempted. Then the next proposal is a very, very important proposal. That is the taxation of real estate investment trust. You call it REIT, Sri Lanka REITs, right? Basically, most of you are familiar with the unit trust. Now, these REITs also will work according to the unit trust principle. Basically, anyone can invest in the units of these REITs, and then these REITs or real estate investment trust, they will invest those cash in the property sector. Then if anyone is investing in the REITs, then the person who is investing in REITs, he will get two returns. One thing is he might get a dividend, and there can be a capital gain on sale of units at a particular point. Both capital gains and dividends will be exempt from taxes. This is to promote this particular industry. Then apart from that, all of you are aware, right now, if anyone is acquiring any property, the applicable stamp duty rate is 4%, which is considered to be very high. But if any property acquired through REITs, it will be liable to stamp duty only at a reduced rate of 0.75% of the transaction value. The next proposal is little ambiguous proposal. It says tax on dividends of foreign companies, non-resident companies, will be exempted for 3 years if such dividends are utilized for reinvestments on expansion of business, or invest in money or stock market, or invest in Sri Lanka international sovereign bonds. To get this exemption, the dividend has to be invested either in the money market or stock market, or expansion of the business itself, or international sovereign bonds issued by the government. But the issue here is, it says the tax on dividends of foreign companies. Right now, any dividends paid to a foreign shareholder is exempt according to the pronouncements made in January 2020, right? So if that is the case, there's a little bit of a doubt how this is going to work, because if it is anyway exempt, no need to comply with these conditions to get the exemption. On the other hand, if this proposal is concerned about the foreign dividends received by a Sri Lankan company, then that kind of dividend also is exempt if you have substantial investment in that particular foreign entity. For example, if you are have invested more than 10% of the stated capital of a foreign entity, and if you are receiving any dividend, that dividend is also exempt. So therefore, this proposal is we have a little bit of ambiguity, so it has to be clarified in the times to come. The next exemption is available for commercial banks. Basically, they will be exempt from income tax if the investment is made in excess of $100 million in the international sovereign bonds issued by the government. So basically, this is limited to the commercial banks. They have to invest more than $100 million in the international sovereign bonds issued by the government. Then both interest income and capital gain is exempt from the tax. Then the next one, earlier, now Strategic Development Act was enacted in the year 2008, and the very big infrastructure development projects came under Strategic Development Act. Now they have reduced the threshold. If any investment is made in excess of $10 million in export industries, dairy, fabric, tourism, agricultural products, processing and information technology, they will be provided with tax concessions up to a maximum period of 10 years under the Strategic Development Law. Now, earlier, really the investment threshold for the Strategic Development Act under Strategic Development Act was very high, something around at least more than 100 million. If I give a few example, the Chinese company which constructed the Hambantota port, they got this status, strategic development status. Then the Colombo port construction company got this status. Likewise, the mega projects formulated under the strategic development law. But however, here the US dollar 10 million investments into this particular sectors also will be given tax holiday up to maximum period of 10 years under the Strategic Development Act. The next one, the investments in bonded warehouse and warehouses related to offshore businesses in Colombo and Hambantota ports also will be exempt from all taxes. All taxes mean then income tax, the VAT, and all taxes, it will be exempt if there are any investments are made in the bonded warehouses and warehouses related to offshore business in the Colombo and Hambantota ports. Now here the minimum investment value is not given. So investment value can be any amount. If anyone is investing in this area, bonded warehouse or warehouses connected with the two main ports of the country, they will get a tax exemption from all the taxes. Then the next one is also very important proposal. Now government is having a very big plan to expand the 4G network in the country by investing 15,000 million money in developing the 4G network. To do that, a lot of new towers has to be built around the country. So the 5-year tax exemption will be provided to the domestic telecommunication industrialists building telecommunication towers and infrastructure using domestic labor and materials. Now these conditions are very important. Basically this exemption is available for domestic industrialists who are building the telecommunication towers and the related infrastructure, and they have to use the domestic labor and the materials. If you comply with these conditions, they will get a 5-year tax exemption. So there will be big market opportunity as government is going to spend 15,000 million rupees within the next year for the construction of the telecommunication infrastructure. Then the next one, government is trying to promote the vocational education in the country. Here again, any person who has got qualified in vocational education and start a business of his own, then he will be entitled to a 5-year tax exemption for the business commenced by him after his completion of the vocational education. Further, it is proposed to give them a loan up to 500,000 at a concessionary rate of 4% interest to start up their businesses. Then there's another incentive given to the banks who are granting such loans. The cost of funds provided under such loan schemes will be allowed as a deduction. Now basically, anyway, any bank interest incurred by a bank or financial institution will be allowed as a deduction. I think this proposal is trying to give a double deduction kind of a thing to encourage lending to this particular sector. Remember, this is available for the individuals who are getting qualified in vocational education. Then there's a further government has another main objective of improving the tertiary vocational education and training in the country. So basically, this benefit or tax benefit is given to institutions who provide tertiary vocational education, and the condition here is the tax holiday will be given provided they double their number of intake and at least it should reach 50,000. Two conditions are there. One thing, it has to be doubled their intake, and it must reach at least 50,000. So I think it's little difficult task to target for 50,000 students intake for any institution. So basically you will be able to get this type of a number of institution after having been in the industry for so many long years. So startup businesses will not be able to get this benefit because this target of 50,000 students in a single year seems to be an impossible task. Then again, strategic tax concessions under the Strategic Development Act will be provided for 5 years for capital investments over 25 million US dollars for dairy industry companies to process milk exports instead importing milk powder. Now, during the budget, it was stated Sri Lanka is expending an enormous amount of money for importing milk powder. So this incentive is given for 5-year tax holiday for dairy companies who buy milk from the local farmers and then convert it into milk powder and export. Right. So the investment is fairly high, 25 million investment target is there, and 5 years tax exemption is there. Then another tax exemption of 10 years is given for recycling and reuse of material from construction industry at selected recycling sites. I think this is for the environment protection. This recycling and reuse is promoted through a tax incentive by giving a 10-year tax holiday period. Next one, the dividends distributed by commercial hub enterprises will be exempt from, effective from 1st January 2020, exempt in the sense the recipient will be exempt from the taxes effective from this date. Then next one is a specific proposal to the Sri Lanka Airlines. All aircraft related payments, software license and other overseas payments made by Sri Lankan Airlines will be exempt effective from 1st April 2018 itself. Right? It's specific to the Sri Lanka Airlines, not to others. Then the next one, now if there is any conflict between the Inland Revenue Act and the Strategic Development Projects Act, the concessions given under the Strategic Development Act will prevail over the Inland Revenue Act. That is also very specifically mentioned here. Next one, a tax holiday of 7 years will be allowed for all renewable energy projects. Now, renewable energy projects mean basically the hydropower generation, then the solar power, wind power generation projects. Now, all of these projects will get a 7-year tax holiday period. Right? At present, these renewable energy projects are liable to tax at the rate of 14% under the Inland Revenue Act. Now, there can be a question whether these existing projects also will enjoy this tax holiday period. This has to be clarified by the Ministry of Finance in the times to come. Next one is also very important proposal, which says if any item is exempt at the exempt from VAT at the point of importation, then such item will be exempt if it is manufactured domestically also. It's fair if the item is exempt from VAT on import, the same item, if it is domestically manufactured, same exemption will be granted. The next proposal is also now when you do the imports, in the foreign exchange, you have to keep certain amount of foreign exchange with the domestic banks in foreign currency, and if any interest income is earned on such deposits, that will be exempted from taxes. Now, anyway, according to the proposals given in the January, any foreign currency earnings from a foreign currency interest earnings from a commercial bank is exempt. So therefore, there's nothing much new in this proposal. Then further, 7-year tax break is also given for local boat and shipbuilding industry. Right? This is also one of the industries the government is trying to promote. So 7-year tax break is given for boat and shipbuilding industry. So basically, those are the tax exemptions granted under the budget proposals. Then we go into the next area of my presentation, the miscellaneous tax related proposals. Now, this is, I think, one of the hottest topics right now. If any business or factory with more than 50 employees, they will be compelled to contribute 0.25% of the turnover to the proposed insurance fund, which is going to be look after the health of the employees, right? So this is a kind of an additional burden on the businesses. If you have more than 50 employees, you may become from any other, whatever the industry, then basically you will have to contribute 0.25% of the turnover to the proposed insurance fund. Then all of you are aware right now, plant and machinery are capital allowances are available over the period of 5 years. But however, to improve the milk industry, the capital allowances will be granted over the period of 2 years if any capital investments are done on latest technology to collect local liquid milk from the dairy farmers, right? So capital allowance can be claimed in 2 years instead of 5 years. But here what it says is the investments done on latest technology. So most probably they will have to define the meaning of latest technology to receive this benefit. Here the capital allowance benefit is going to be given over a period of 2 years, accelerated capital allowances. Then there's a proposal to reduce the import taxes on the vehicle spare parts, not on the vehicles, the vehicle spare parts, to promote the entrepreneurs in automobile industries to engage in vehicle repairing and the vehicle assembly. Government wants to promote the vehicle assembly industry, so therefore they are going to reduce the import taxes. The amounts are to be notified later through the Gazette notifications. Then certain raw materials which are not available in the country, such as cement, premix, iron rods, bitumen, etc., will be allowed to import without import duties. Basically, they will be used for the construction of mega housing projects, the highways, and also to ensure that such materials will be available to the small and medium construction activities at a competitive price. So which means these construction materials which cannot be manufactured domestically will be allowed to import free of import duties. This will be a boost to the construction industry. Then the next one is also very interesting proposal. It says it is proposed to exempt import tax on import of machinery with modern technologies. Now here the question is, no industry is specified, and it says the modern technologies. Now what is modern technology has to be clarified, right? Otherwise the import taxes are normally levied at the point of import of the machineries. But if you are importing any machinery with the modern technologies, the import taxes will not be charged. The concept here is very clear: to promote the capital formation in the country, ultimately that which will contribute to the reduction of the cost of the goods and services basically goods you manufacture using those machinery by using the modern technologies. However, the term modern technologies has to be further clarified. Another important proposal in the budget is, now again the government is promoting the consolidation in the financial sector. Basically, there are a lot of finance companies and small banks which can't, their going concern is very uncertain in the present turbulence period. So therefore, government doesn't want to see collapsing any of these banks and small finance companies. They are again promoting the consolidation in the financial sector like the government did during the period 2013-14. Now, when any company spend money on acquisition of another finance company, now that amount of the investment expenditure will be allowed as a deductible expenditure in the tax computation. The same provision was there in 2014 also. The cost of acquisition of another banking or financial institution was allowed as a qualifying payment at that time. Here also same kind of relief will be made available to the companies which are basically banks and finance companies who are acquiring other companies in this consolidation process. Right. There's another insurance scheme proposed through Sri Lanka Export Insurance Corporation, where insurance premium of 1% of the export revenue of SMEs will have to be contributed to for such insurance scheme. Right. There are two insurance schemes. Earlier one is for the health, that is for all the businesses with excess of 50 employees. But here this one is only for the SME exporters. 1% of their export revenue will have to be contributed to this export insurance scheme. Then the government is promoting the Samurti women's shops, right? Samurti, the government wants basically this women engage in this Samurti movement to start up with their own women's shops. So any individual who is local entrepreneur who is investing in such Samurti women's shops, again, such investment expenditure will be allowed as a deduction against the personal income tax of the individual. Here again, most probably it will be allowed as a qualifying payment. For example, if an individual set up a Samurti women's shop, he might incur expenditure up to 1 million in the process. So such 1 million expenditure will be allowed as a deduction, most probably by way of a qualifying payment in this personal income tax computation. Then the next one is all of you are aware, the Colombo Port Special Economic Zone is going to be launched very soon. So separate new legal framework will be introduced for that particular area. So basically the Inland Revenue Act and all other laws applicable to the rest of the country will not be applicable for this Colombo Port Special Economic Zone, and it will be governed under separate legal framework for that particular area. Further, it is explained it will provide concessions on required taxes and specific goods trade, banking and foreign exchange with the objective of converting the port city economic zone as one of the hubs for investment promotions in the country. So this hub concept is going to be established through this port city economic zone. So most of the tax cushions will be awarded under the proposed law. Then right now, another tax amnesty or tax pardon is proposed through this budget as well. If any person who has not disclosed any of his funds in his previous income tax returns, and if he now declares that funds and invest in any of the projects proposed under the current budget, they will not be liable to any further taxes other than paying 1% of the amount of such disclosed undeclared profit, right? So this is again another tax pardon or tax amnesty given to the people to be compliant. If you have any undeclared income, you can come and declare it by paying 1% tax, and not only that, you will have to invest in any of the projects given under the present budget proposals. Then right now, the Institute of Nanotechnology, they do a lot of research. So a lot of private sector companies, they make their contributions to the Nanotechnology Institute of Nanotechnology to carry out research. Now those amounts contributed to the Institute of Nanotechnology will be allowed in for the local entrepreneurs with as a deduction expenditure in computation of their taxes, which here again, most probably it will be allowed as a qualified payment. Right. Then we look at the final part of my presentation, the tax relief measures to facilitate post-COVID-19 economic recovery. There are 5 specific proposals under this. The first one, of course, I can't see much of a logic in that. Anyway, we look at what it is. Now, all of you are aware the COVID pandemic came to Sri Lanka somewhere in March 2020, right? Now, at that time, some BUI companies, they were basically exporters. They were providing health protective equipment to the Ministry of Health and Triforces and police. Now, at that time, the rule was, if you are an exporter, you must export 80% to, then only you will be eligible to receive the lower tax rate of 14%. But here what it says is, after January, as I explained earlier, this dominance rule, predominance rule was removed. Now, after January, if your exports are 70%, the 70% profit attributable to 70% export will be taxed at a lower rate of 14%. The balance 30% of the profits will be taxed at a normal rate of 24%. So this COVID, in fact, came after January. So therefore, whatever these BUI companies, their sales to the local armed forces and the Ministry of Health, those sales happened after January, where 80% rule is not applicable. So therefore, I don't see any meaning in this first concession because after January, the predominance rule is not applicable. And even though you don't achieve the 80% target, you are not deprived of the lower tax rate of 14%. You will be entitled to receive the lower tax rate of the 14% or the percentage of exports you have actually achieved. Then the next one, now, there were assessments issued by the Commissioner General for SMEs, small and medium enterprises, up to the year of assessment 2018-19, right? And they will be given a waiver of taxes, on assessments issued by the Commissioner General. But this is available only for the SMBs. But only thing, there is a condition, then the Commissioner General should be satisfied that no fraud or willful neglect involved in the disclosure of income or any of the claiming of any deduction or relief. Basically, if there is no fraud or willful evasion and there are assessments issued by the Commissioner General on SMBs, basically those assessments will be waived off. But here again, I think there can be several issues. Because of the very strict definition given in SMBs, a lot of companies will not qualify to come under SMB definition. For example, according to the SMB definition, there must be 3 conditions to be satisfied. First condition, they must carry out their business only within Sri Lanka. They can't have any branch or anything outside Sri Lanka. I think most of the SMEs will satisfy that condition. The second condition is their turnover should be less than 500 million. That condition also will be satisfied by most of the SMEs. But the third condition is the problematic one. The SME should not have an associate that is an entity, right? If there is any associate, basically associate company, then you are not entitled for this concession, right? Therefore, a lot of SMBs, it is a question whether they will be eligible to get the benefit under this concession. Anyway, the concession is whatever the assessments issued by Commissioner General up to the year of assessment 18-19 will be waived off, provided you are a SME entity and there is no willful neglect or fraud involved. Then the next one is also for SMBs. For year of assessment 2019, that is 1920. That is our present year of assessment. Now, right now we are filing returns for 1920. Now, the tax returns filed by the SMEs for year of assessment 2019-20 will be accepted by the Commissioner General without issuing any additional assessments, provided you SME file a tax return and pay taxes as per the return. You have to comply with two things. First thing, you have to file a return for 2019-20 and then pay taxes as per the return. Then there won't be any additional assessment issued by the department for year of assessment 2019-20. That will be a big relief for this particular year, 19-20. So this is a good opportunity for SMEs to file their returns without any further assessment from the department. But here the issue is the SME definition. How is going to be looking at the department. Then again, a grace period is proposed for the taxes in arrears which are due to the Department of Inland Revenue. Taxes in arrears can be either to the legacy unit or default recovery unit or remise unit, right? So a grace period is proposed for settlement of the taxes in arrears or default. But what is the length of the duration of the grace period is not mentioned. Most probably it will be announced in the times to come. The last one, the payment of now, all of you are aware that our first COVID wave was there from March to June period. Now, there were a lot of tax returns due during that period, March to June 2020. And there were certain tax payments due during that period. Now, according to this particular relief, you can file such returns which were due during this period, March to June 2020, up to 31st December 2020. One good example is you are supposed to file your payee tax return by 30th April. Now it is extended up to 31st December 2020. Right? Another example for payment. Now the fourth quarter payment of 2019-20 was due on 15th May 2020. However, that payment you can make up to the 31st December 2020. But however, your final payment, which is due on 30th September, is not covered by this period. The period covered here, 1st March 2020 to 30th June 2020 only. Therefore, your final payment, you won't get this relief. But any other payment which are due during March to June period can be made on or before 31st December 2020. On the same way, any returns due during that period also can be filed during up to 31st December 2020. Basically, those are the tax-related proposal in a nutshell, the important proposals as far as the taxation is concerned. But apart from that, if you look at our budget documents issued, we have given you the budget speech summary, right? That will give you an idea where government focus is on within the next year, where the government is going to undertake major infrastructure projects during the next year. If I name a few such projects by looking at the budget speech, the one industry is the government wants to ensure the water facility available to all Sri Lankans within a period of 3 years. For that period, for that purpose, they have allocated 1,000 million. 1,000 million mean 1 billion for the laying of for water distribution. They are planning to have 45,000 kilometers of pipe laying. Right now, this will be a good opportunity for companies which are in the manufacturing PVC pipes. So, likewise, you will be able to look at where the government is going to focus during the next year by looking through the budget speech. Another example is the government is hoping to obtain 500 megawatt through the solar power units, which are 5 kilowatts or less than 5 kilowatts. So they are planning to have 100,000 such small scale power generation units. Basically, those are roof mounted units. Now, companies which are in the solar power industry will have a good opportunity in that area. Likewise, you will be able to identify what are the possible business areas for your businesses by looking at the budget speech. We have given in the summary form under the different headings. I think that will be useful to you. And in our final part of our budget document, we have given whatever the pronouncement made in January is also given, which I have briefly explained at the very beginning of my presentation. So with that, I conclude my presentation. Now you can raise any questions on the proposals. Thank you.
Thank you, Kapila, for the excellent presentation. Now you all can ask your questions. Our tax manager, Ms. Tarasi, also will be joining with us to answer the questions. So we have two options to send your questions. You can use the chat box. You can type your questions in the chat box, or you can unmute your microphone and you can ask the questions directly. We have received few questions. I think I can direct some of these questions to Tarasi. Tarasi, can you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Rodney. Yeah.
There are a few questions we have already received. First question is, will there be any income tax exemptions for the donations made to Itukama COVID-19 fund?
Well, there are no specific exemptions addressed in the proposals, but the companies can claim it as a qualifying payment relief as it is form part of the government donations. So, but there are no exemptions given as such in the proposal.
There's another question. Will there be any reduced income tax rates for BOI companies who's having a higher concessionary rate compared to revised general tax rate? Example, BOI concessionary rate is 20%, whereas the general rate for manufacturing companies is 18%.
I hope they will bring in this as an amendment to the Inland Revenue Act. At the moment, under the current act, without the amendments, there are no provisions as such. But I remember in the repealed act, there was such a provision. Hopefully, they will bring in new provisions to amend the law to give the concessions beneficial rate to the BOI companies.
But basically, Rodney, at this point, the intervention of the Chamber of Commerce and other institutions like CA Sri Lanka is very important to highlight these required changes, and then those things will come as a technical correction. These are basically the technical corrections.
I think most of these BOI companies, they were expecting this to come in the budget proposal, but it has not come. So as you suggested, I think other CEO or the institutions must take up.
Not only that, they are having the trade association. For example, BOI companies may be having their own trade cluster, so they can make representations, and most probably government will be receptive to these proposals, because right now their concentration is on the economic recovery rather than the collection of taxes. Right? They are in that mode, so therefore most probably it will be given, since it was already there in the under the previous act.
Yes. Now we are getting few questions in the chat box. Kapila, you can take this question. Vocational education, does this includes accounting professionals like CIMA, ACCA?
I do not think those are considered as professions, right? The vocational education is basically something to do with not the professional qualifications. Right? Professional qualifications are a separate category. So this is for the vocational training, something like carpentry or whatever the other vocation, mechanics, boat building, or whatever the other things. But accountancy is considered as a profession because with a qualifying examination and you are giving a license to practice, right? So those professions will not be allowed entitled under this. Another thing, even though there's an exemption given there, in my view, it's a very, very difficult task for any institution to achieve 50,000 students in the present day situation.
According to exemptions given by Budget 2021, entire seafoods companies are exempted from IT for another 5 years. Please explain.
What are the seafood companies?
I think yeah, they wants to know whether seafood companies will be exempt from income tax, but according to my recollection, seafood companies are not covered in the budget proposal, no, under exemptions.
No, fisheries are covered. No. Fisheries are exempted.
Exempted.
So under the fisheries, they will be entitled. If you look at the very first proposal, farming, including agriculture, livestock, and fisheries are exempt. So they will come under the category of fisheries.
So here all the entities, all the fisheries entities will be exempt, or the fisheries, the new entities will be exempt?
No, that is where it's very difficult to tell at this moment. We will have to wait how the law is going to be framed, right? Now, this question is there, not only fisheries, lot of other, for example, renewable energy. Now they are proposing 7-year tax holiday, whether the existing companies will be entitled for that, right? So they will have to make a policy level decision on that, whether the existing entities will be available or not. We can't tell right now whether this will be available for the existing companies.
Looks like a lot of people are worrying about this 0.25% insurance fund contribution. There is a question, actually there are a few questions. One is, can you explain the insurance fund scheme with example? They want to know how it's going to work. I think there's another question. It is proposed to create a new insurance scheme with the contribution of 0.25% on the turnover of the business, and factories with more than 50 employees to support the employees at retail and wholesale shops with more than 5 employees, and hotels who temporarily loses livelihoods due to COVID-19 pandemic.
Yes.
Are there any specific businesses, industries on which this tax charge is applicable?
No, there are no specific industries according to the budget proposal. If any entity, if they have more than 50 employees, they are supposed to contribute. Don't know any specific industries mentioned here.
So any idea how this is going to work?
I think detailed precise guidelines has to be issued by the department.
No, the thing is this now only. This is a broad policy framework given by the government. How it is going to be developed into action plans has to be formulated within the next 2 to 3 months. So during that time, the involvement of the interested parties, the trade chambers, and the CA Sri Lanka and various other stakeholders is very important to ensure that the correct policies are framed. Otherwise, what can happen is the intended benefits will not be finally translated into the law, right? So therefore, here again, definitely government want this one, but at the same time, we must ensure it is done in a fair manner without hurting any particular section of the business. So therefore, there will be a lot of dialogue taking place between the Chamber of Commerce and the government the next 1 or 2 months to come. Already I have seen now some people have, especially the chambers, they have raised their concerns about the increase in the retirement age of up to 60 years, right? And increase in the plantation sector salaries. Likewise, now there will be a it will be a kind of a give and take between the government and the businesses, and finally you have to come to some compromise situation. Now this is a kind of a broad policy framework they have given, so it has to be evolved all the time. We can't give any definite answers how it's going to work until that time is reached. So we can give very precise answers once these laws are passed in the parliament. I think ideally we have to have this discussion just after the laws have been passed in the parliament. At that time, we are very sure how it is going to be affected. Right now, it's only a very broad policy state.
Some clients wants to know now, since it's 0.25% of the turnover, it looks like our earlier ESC, whether the government will allow this payment to be set off against the income tax.
It can't be, because it's not going to be paid to the, normally if it is paid to the inland revenue only, it will be allowed as a credit against the income tax liability. I think this is for an insurance fund, so most probably it will not be allowed as a credit against the income tax liabilities.
There is a question. There are two types of income tax for businesses. If there are two types of income for a businessman, business income of 1 million and cultivation income of 4 million, means, is there an exemption for that 1 million?
No, what will happen is that 4 million is not liable to tax. I think he must be referring to an individual, right? If it is an individual, that 4 million will not be liable to income tax, because that's part of the agriculture income. Then 1 million, the remainder of the income is only 1 million, which is below the threshold. Then there is no tax liability from 2020-21 onwards.
Okay. There is a question related to this SME definition. To be considered as SME, third condition which says there should not be an associate. Does this mean the particular entity should be a standalone entity without any investment in associates or subsidiary?
Yes, definitely you can't have investment in associates and subsidiaries. But apart from that, this inland revenue SME SME associate definition is very, very wide enough. Even though, for example, just consider the situation, there's one company with two shareholders A and B. Then there is another company with two shareholders A and B. Between those two companies, shall we say first company X, second company Y, between those two companies, there is no investment relationship. But still, as per the SME definition, these two companies, as per the associate definition, company X and company Y can be considered as associates, because they are under the common control of X and A and B. So therefore, these two are associates. If they are associates, then you will not come under the definition of the SME. So therefore, practically, a lot of entities will not be able to enjoy the lower tax rate under SME in this scenario. If it is a standalone company without having any such other relationship, definitely they will be eligible. But so therefore, the shareholding relationship is not mandatory to become associates, as per the associate definition given in the section 196 of the Act.
Okay. There is another question again relating to insurance fund. Do export company also need to contribute to this insurance fund?
So the qualifying criteria there is the 50 employees. But they have mentioned this 50 employees only. Even if an export company, if they have more than 50 employees, according to the policy framework, they will have to, but we will have to see how it is finally translated into the law. At that point, sometimes certain exclusions will take place.
Anybody wants to ask questions directly, or can unmute your mic and you can ask questions. There's a question, any exemption in jewelry trade?
No, under the budget proposals, there was nothing I can remember. For a gem industry, there was an exemption. Gem exports.
Not for jewelry.
Not for jewelry.
Parasi, I think you can answer this question. It was proposed to grant tax holiday of services for all renewable energy projects. Does this exemption cover existing renewable energy projects as well?
Well, like Mr. Kapila has explained, these are the gray areas, Mr. Rodney, because they have not specifically mentioned those things. So we have to wait for a precise guideline from the department.
No, basically, we will have to wait for the Amendment Act. Now, most probably it will be issued before ideally before April next year.
Mr. Rodney would like to ask whether they have given the definitions for IT and enabled services, or it is yet to be given.
Or yet to be given.
Okay, right, thank you.
No, normally, I think it's Mangala, no? You can't expect this kind of definitions through budget. Budget is a broad policy statement. Those things will come with once it is enacted in the parliament at that point.
Right. Fine, thank you.
So this thing is Mangala now. You have your own association, no? Software.
Yes.
Through your association, you have to make your representations to the government, right? Then
because we actually normally we represented to SLASCOM.
Yes.
So they will definitely reach the government and they will get the definition.
Yes. Now there is a whole. I mean, government is heavily backing on this technology development. That's why they are going to invest 15,000 million into the 4G network, right? So basically, this is one of the areas they have identified which has a potential to growth. So they will give whatever the policies to give. Now it's a question of correctly defining it. So you must have your voice at that point and give the correct criteria. Otherwise, the people who are drafting the law may not be knowledgeable about the nitty-gritties of your industry.
Yeah, understood.
And yesterday at the CA seminar also, the Deputy Commissioner confirmed that they have already written to Finance Secretary, and it is expected within 1 or 2 weeks. Kapila, there is a general question. I don't know whether you can answer this question. What is the interest rate in deposit to Samurdhi banks?
No.
Budget, but there's a general question.
No, there is no such specified rate. So basically, the loans given, they have capped sometimes at 4%, sometimes at 7%, depending on the various industries. Basically, I am not aware about the specific interest rates on some of the banks. So some of the banks are supposed to invest in the government treasury bills. Then if that is the case, obviously you will be getting something less than the government treasury rate.
Yes.
There was this 1% contribution to insurance corporation
Yes,
from the export turnover.
yes.
Now, when the export company make that payment, will the company get their export credit insurance?
No, I think that is not a premium for premium payment, but I think if there is any credit loss incurred, I think they are going to compensate through that fund. That is the idea of export credit insurance scheme.
So that means all the companies, is it a mandatory contribution for all export companies?
No, once it is made, now we will have to wait for now what it says is for the SMBs, right? SMBs only they have mentioned in the proposal, but we will have to see how it is finally drafted into the law.
Yes. Thanks.
Kapila, there's another question relating to Samurdhi. Samurdhi women's shop means example.
No, they are proposing at the village level, women who are getting the Samurdhi benefits to start the shops. This is a new concept, right? Then anyone who is investing in such a shop, he will be able to claim that expenditure in his personal income tax. That is the concession given.
Yes. There's an interesting question. Is the importation of vehicles suspended for next 2 years?
Not in the budget speech, anything to that effect, but I saw in the papers today, even the Vehicle Importers Association, they are in agreement with extending it for 1 year. But I'm not sure. Nothing is mentioned in the budget.
There is a question relating. There's a question relating to brought forward losses. Any restrictions for brought forward tax losses which can be claimed in the future and for deferred tax purposes?
Deferred tax purposes. No, right now the restrictions are the brought forward losses, you have to recover within 6 years. That is one restriction. Another restriction is your business losses can be set off against the investment losses, whereas the other way is not possible. Investment losses cannot be set off against the business losses. The third restriction is if a loss incurred at a lower rate, shall we say loss incurred at a trade which is liable at 14%, such loss cannot be set off against the profits of a trade which is taxed at a higher rate. So those are the restrictions. Subject to those 3 restrictions, losses can be carried forward. The time period is 6 years. Set off from business to investment possible, other way not possible. From high rate to low rate possible, but lower rate losses cannot be set off against the high rate profits.
We are a coconut oil manufacturing company. Do you think we will get tax exemption under agriculture business?
So if you are you will not be qualified under agriculture because you are in the business of agro processing. Agro processing is liable at the rate of 14%. But one thing now, if you are a plantation with oil manufacturing, then the agriculture profit will be exempted, right? The processing profit only will become liable at the rate of 14%.
Next question. The import tax changes. The import tax changes. It is changed from the next day onwards after the budget presented previously. There are import tax changes in this budget too. Any idea when those changes going to be implemented?
Normally the import duty changes, there are two things, import duty changes and for example, if there's a VAT change on the imports, that will happen in the future date. But normally the import duty changes will be happening overnight. The budget day night itself, those things will be effective.
I think we have answered all the questions received up to now. Anyone wants to ask questions directly? This poultry industry, what will happen? Will they be exempt from income tax under agriculture definition?
Yes, yes. Now it's very clearly stated. No. What it says is farming, including agriculture, livestock, and fisheries. Poultry will come under livestock. Anyway, as per the Inland Revenue Agriculture definition, the present definition also includes poultry.
I think we have answered all the questions. If there are no other questions, I think we can conclude the session.
Yes, Rodney.
There's another question. The tax rate will be remaining next 5 years without change? Question mark.
So that's the policy statement they made at the Parliament. The tax rates will be kept as it is for at least another 5 years. No, I think you have a reasonable expectation to do that. But this year being the most difficult year, if they have kept the tax rates unchanged, so we can have a reasonable expectation that will continue. But however, all that depends on whether the government is going to achieve their revenue target by end of the year. So if it is drastically different, sometime they will look for different alternative methods of collecting taxes. But right now their thinking is you have to give more concessions to kickstart the economy. That's the philosophy behind the budget.
Okay, then since there are no other questions, I would like to invite our managing partner, Mr. Rajanathan, to give the closing remarks.
Thank you, Rodney. I think already Kapila, you and Tarashi has done a wonderful job, and you have already covered the budget in detail. So I have
less things to do now. But I thought I just share few of my thoughts on the budget, just which already all have already covered, but I thought I'll just share a few of my thoughts. One is, I thought all of us expected increase in taxes because of COVID-19 pandemic, but we are fortunate there has been no change. That means there is a consistency in the tax rates. Then I thought the budget has been framed in concentrating on promoting investments and development, and also promotion of exports and tourism, discouraging imports, and also gives incentive to dairy farming, livestock farming, agriculture, and IT sector. Already one of our clients has already started forming a company for dairy farming. So that's good sign. And it also is encouraging manufacturing of medicines and also supports construction and garment industries. Further, I observed that it encourages all private companies to go for listing in the CSE. Few of my thoughts, which are all good signs, but I would say we have already submitted a detailed booklet. On the budget day, we put up only a small slides, but subsequently yesterday we had delivered a detailed brochure. I think that is really helpful. You all can go through that, and if there are any queries or any clarification you need, you are welcome to write to us and ask the clarification. I hope this seminar has been very useful, or webinar has been very useful. And before I conclude, I would like to tell little on our firm. We as Creston, most of you will know, we do audit and tax, but it's not only audit and tax. We do so many other services, especially company secretarial services, which will cover company formation and also winding up. Then we also have another division which covers, which is called BPS, Business Process Solution, which attends to accounting as well as payroll processing. So that is also covered. In addition, even internal audit, investigations, due diligence, and special assignments are also undertaken. So if you need those services, you are welcome to contact us. And with these remarks, I will conclude this webinar now. Thank you for your participation.